Hey, have you ever wondered why your grandma always says her generation was the best? Or why do your parents think you'll never understand what hard work really means? In today's video, we're going to explore the generations. Let's dive into the differences and why each generation thinks so differently. And how do these differences affect our daily lives? You'll discover how each generation was shaped by historical events, technological changes, and cultural shifts. Learn to better understand your parents, your children, and even yourself. Want to know how to use these differences to your advantage, whether at work, in relationships, or in life in general? This video is for you. Stay tuned, because by the end, you'll know not just where you fit in, but also how to use this knowledge to improve your personal and professional connections. Have you ever had arguments because you felt misunderstood? Or caught yourself thinking, back in my day, things were different? Then let's go. Let's start with the famous baby boomers. This generation was born between 1946 and 1964. A time when rock and roll was the new rebellion and bell-bottom pants were in style. They grew up to the sounds of Elvis Presley and the Beatles, and believe it or not, they actually thought Elvis's hairstyle was a good idea. Baby boomers are known for working hard and building what we now call the American dream. They take pride in having lived in a time when work meant stability and buying a house was possible before turning 30. But of course, that hasn't stopped them from criticizing us for spending too much time on our phones, even if we're just trying to hail a cab through an app. These folks survived wars, economic crises, and the horror of having to get up to change the TV channel manually. Yes, that was a reality. And let's talk about the stories of "I walked 10 miles in the snow to get to school." It may sound exaggerated, but the truth is, baby boomers face challenges that today seem like fiction. They take pride in having gone through all that, even if it doesn't make much sense to those born in the digital age. Ready to find out what comes next? Now it's Generation X's turn. Born between 1965 and 1980, known as the middle children of the generation story, they are the bridge between boomers and millennials. They grew up with the freedom of the streets, the first video games, and of course the peak of 80s cinema. If you think today's movies are cool, try watching Back to the Future or The Goonies and just try not to fall in love. Generation X takes pride in being the first to openly challenge social norms and experience the true rebellion of the 80s and 90s. They were also the pioneers of personal technology use, with their Walkmans and early PCs. But mention that to them, and you might get bombarded with stories of programming computers using cassette tapes and how their first cell phone looked like a brick, which also doubled as a self-defense weapon. Oh, and let's not forget mixtapes. If you think creating playlists on Spotify is an art, try making the perfect mixtape with cassette tapes and a recorder that insisted on eating the tape in the middle of the best song. Yes, Generation X has plenty to be proud of, even if today these stories sound like ancient tales. Now let's talk about the famous millennials, also known as Generation Y, born between 1981 and 1996. This is the generation that grew up as the internet evolved, witnessing the birth of social media and the rise of smartphones. They fondly remember the nostalgic sound of a dial-up modem and having to ask everyone not to use the phone while they were online. Let's see who gets nostalgic with this sound. Millennials take pride in being multitaskers and revolutionizing the job market with the concepts of flexibility and working from home. They were the first to question the necessity of spending their entire lives in a cubicle and to seek a balance between work and personal life. But of course, this is also the generation known as the gourmet, coffee, and avocado toast generation. Who needs to own a home when you can have the perfect brunch, right? Speaking of food, millennials brought the concept of healthy and sustainable eating into the mainstream. They are the masters of gluten-free vegan diets and the farm-to-table movement. If you don't know what that means, ask a millennial and prepare for a lecture on the benefits of organic food. This generation also pioneered selfies, hashtags, and viral campaigns. They transformed the way we communicate and share our lives. So if you've ever posted a photo of your lunch or done a dance on TikTok, thank or blame the millennials for paving the way. And now, the generation that's always online, Generation Z, born between 1997 and 2010. If you think it's hard to keep up with trends, this is the generation that was born with a smartphone in hand and was already dancing on TikTok before they learned to walk. They have never known a world without high-speed internet and Wi-Fi everywhere. So explaining dial-up internet to them is like trying to explain a fax machine to a millennial. Generation Z takes pride in being the most inclusive and aware generation so far. They grow up in a world where diversity is celebrated and the fight for equal rights is ongoing. If you think social media is powerful, This group knows exactly how to use it to mobilize millions and make their voices heard globally. But of course, it's not all sunshine and roses. Generation Z also faces the challenge of living in an era of information overload and dealing with the pressures of social media. If you've ever felt anxious while scrolling through your Instagram feed, imagine growing up with that. They have a love-hate relationship with technology, using it to connect but also struggling to unplug and have offline moments. Oh, and we can't forget the memes. Generation Z has elevated meme creation to an art form. If you don't understand their humor, don't worry. Sometimes even they don't. But one thing is certain. This generation is shaping the future in ways we can't even imagine. I can't say if it's good or bad, but we'll have to wait for the next universe update patches to see what's coming. Before the next generation, I want to ask 3 questions. Have you subscribed to my channel? No? I bet you're a boomer. And the other questions, do you like the generation you were born into? If you had to choose another generation to be born in and experience everything they did, which one would it be? I really like old rock, so maybe I'd choose to be a boomer. But I'm not too keen on the idea of wars. So I think being me is just fine. And finally, the brand new Generation Alpha, born from 2010 to approximately 2025. They are the children of millennials, and if you thought Generation Z was advanced, get ready. Generation Alpha is growing up in a world where artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and smart homes are the norm. Alexa, play a lullaby. These kids are learning to use tablets before they can even talk, and will probably teach us how to use the next generation of technologies. They're growing up with an even stronger environmental awareness and a global perspective, thanks to the information available at the touch of a button. But with great power comes great responsibility. Generation Alpha will have to deal with challenges we can't even imagine yet. What will it be like to grow up in a world where technology is always present, where privacy is a constant issue and climate change is a real threat? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain, they will surprise us.